I fast.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Metacast podcast. That's the podcast that improves itself, improves ourselves, and improves the self in general. My name is Ty. I'm going to be your host, and I'm joined today by my astounding co-host, Distance. What's up, buddy? So today we've got an interesting topic. I like this idea. We're kind of comparing and contrasting two terms, having a general discussion about confidence and arrogance. I guess I had a word as like confidence versus arrogance, but I think it's just a discussion of the two terms. They don't necessarily have to like battle it out, right?
Yeah, there doesn't have to be like a bout between the two.
If confidence and arrogance both dropped into the Thunderdome, who would walk out? If two,
I'm gonna say confidence if we're having that conversation.
Good, yeah. See, I agree. I think confidence is the strictly better of the two terms, but there are some differences between the two. So yeah, what is your opinion on the topic today? How do you feel about the ideas of confidence and arrogance?
So this is actually things that I've thought about a lot. So when we needed to switch topics suddenly today, I didn't really feel off guard or like I needed to prepare anything. So I think I might have said this on the podcast before, but my thoughts on confidence and arrogance are that confidence is the internal understanding of who you are, and arrogance is the external expression of your own insecurities.
Okay. I do feel like we've talked about this, but what episode would that have been? Because I do remember the internal versus external difference. I like that though. Do you think that there are times where arrogance can be beneficial, or do you think that arrogance is almost a strictly negative thing?
If you're a certain type of salesperson.
Okay.
Depending upon what kind of sales you do, in certain situations as a salesperson, some degree of arrogance is somewhat necessary, because you have to, I think, express an exaggerated sense of your company's triumphs, I guess, or your company's ability to serve, because it's like the reason why action movies are unrealistic is because if they were realistic, they'd be boring.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you don't want to watch that.
If you talk reasonably and realistically about what your company or your product can do for somebody, then they're just going to be so bored that it's not going to matter. So okay. I don't think that you're not necessarily being disingenuous with that person, but the salespeople that I work with have some degree of that, but it's not in a way that makes me hate them. Well, not all of them, but it's just something that I expect from people in that position.
Okay.
But I think that's the only place where I really think of it as being, or in a job interview sometimes.
Yeah, I was about to say, I guess any situation where you're trying to sell something, then it doesn't always have to be sales, but if you're trying to sell someone on an idea, or even like you're saying, sell someone on yourself in an interview situation or something like that. Okay. So do you think that there is a danger? See, I see these two topics as having a lot of crossover in some areas, and I see it as for people that are untrained in distinction between the two. It's like you could set a goal to be a confident person and very easily teach yourself arrogant traits, if that makes sense. It's like I see that like it almost that like you have to be careful between the two, and like with your definition, try to be, like point out a clear distinction between the two and try to focus on one or another, because I could see it as being a confident person. Of course, I would say is a good goal. I think anyone should be confident in who they are in themselves if it's deserved, but if it's deserved, you should by nature have confidence. So it's kind of like a roundabout way of saying that. But I think that's a goal that anyone should go towards. I don't believe that I don't believe that not being confident is going to do anyone any justice. But at the same time, I guess what I'm trying to get at is in my past, so many ways that I've tried to create confidence in myself, the same practices, the same way of doing something or seeing something can easily be turned into arrogance if you're not careful.
There's a really common thing that people with low confidence think about confidence, that if you're not careful, that confidence is going to make you arrogant. Be careful, because confidence taken to the extreme is arrogance. But I don't think of them as being two different things on the same scale. I think of them as being part of the same scale, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think of them as being two completely different things.
Okay.
Because there's a limit to how confident you can be, because there's a limit to how valuable you can be or how much skill you can have. But arrogance is limitless. You can pretend all day to be way, way, way better than you are. And you can act as much as you want to be as far superior to everyone else around you as you want. There's no limit to that. You can always do that. But the thing with confidence is, like, thinking of confidence as being a goal doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because confidence doesn't require you to do anything other than be honest with yourself.
Well, but I mean, but isn't that a goal to shoot towards? Like, I would
Being
say that
honest with
honesty is a goal.
yourself?
Yeah, I would say, like,
Yeah, I
honesty
mean,
with yourself and others would be a good goal.
Having a realistic self-concept is really what people should strive for, because when you do that, you'll either figure out that you need to work on some things and then work on those things, and then create confidence by acknowledging that you've improved that stuff, or you know what you're good at already and you have confidence in those things. And everybody's got something that they are good at. They've got something that if they acknowledge it, they can be like, oh yeah, I'm really good at this, you know? And I mean, it's because the confidence comes from building other skills.
What do you mean by that?
So, you know, like you have to have something to be confident about.
Yeah.
If you have worked on something in like I'm trying to give examples that, because there's two ways you can look at this. Sometimes you build a skill and then you become confident in that activity because you've built a skill in it.
Okay.
And then other times there are things that give you a feeling of confidence. So sometimes I can relate it to like motorcycles.
Okay.
Like riding the sportier type of motorcycles, like not actual sport bikes, but like street fighter type bikes. There are some motorcycles that just feel very planted, and you don't have any reservations about tipping them into a corner and just riding. And sometimes you'll mount certain tires onto your motorcycle, and those tires will give you a feeling of confidence that I trust that these tires will work and I can ride a little bit harder. But then also at the same time, I need to have confidence in my abilities already.
Okay.
But the thing is like I can be a very confident rider, but then I can also be given a piece of equipment that doesn't really give me a feeling of trust. Or I can be someone who is not a very skilled rider, but I can be given a piece of equipment that gives me a feeling that I can do a little bit more. And then I might actually push a tiny bit harder, not to the point like where I'm going to crash, but to feel more confident, like going a little faster or taking a different line or, you know, something like that.
Okay.
So I think that and that's a little bit different because it's something giving you a feeling of that, like you trust the thing. So for instance, I mean, because I mean, there's other activities like people that are really good at playing. I won't say wind instruments because they can be a lot different, but someone that's really confident in playing like guitar or bass, they can more or less pick up any instrument. And after like maybe 90 seconds of goofing around, they'll just be really good with that specific guitar, that specific bass. Like they'll be able to figure it out really quickly, and they're just a confident player. But you'll also notice that a lot of the time, the people that are really, really good don't say anything ever. Like their coworkers will never know that they're really, really awesome at playing guitar.
Yeah.
And they won't brag to their friends a lot about it, but they'll pick one up and they'll just be like, "Oh yeah," and then just shred their asses off, and people will be like, "I didn't know you could do that." I'm like, oh yeah, I've been playing for a little while. No big deal.
Do you think that those two go hand in hand? The confidence in an ability, but then also the humility of not having to wear that on your sleeve as part of your personality or like, as a flag you fly?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, but it really depends on the situation. Like, you can hear somebody talk about achievements, but not actually boast.
Yeah.
So I think that people might share their achievements, but they're not going to make a big deal out of it. Like, every now and then, like, I will, when it becomes relevant in our conversations, you'll hear me talk about, some of the difficult shit I've done on bikes. Like at this point, it's riding a bike 100 miles in a day. But the thing is I think I've even expressed at some point when I brought it up that if you try it, it's really not that hard. If you work up to it, then it's possible for anybody to do it. It's difficult, but it's within anyone's reach. I mean, like I have a genetic muscle disease. It took me for freaking ever. If I can do it, anybody can.
Yeah.
But then that's another thing is that like, I can say that, but I don't try. I don't know if I'm not making an effort to downplay it. I just don't feel like it's a big deal.
Well, I honestly think most things are like that, where the outside person looking at the talent, skill, or whatever it is, first of all, they're looking at it through the lens of someone who's unpracticed. So if they're looking at the end of like you're talking about, I mean, like riding 100 miles in a day, that's a goal oriented process that you work up to. It's not just something that you go from one day not stepping foot on a bike, like, all right, well, I'll ride 100 miles tomorrow. So someone's looking at it from the lens of someone who hasn't ridden all of the steps leading up to that, and they're just like, oh wow, yeah, I could never ride 100 miles. It's like, well, you're right. You wouldn't. First you would be riding 10 x number of times, then you'd be riding 20, then you'd be, and by the time you're riding 75 a few times, then riding 100 is not something that you would never be able to do. You wouldn't look at it that way. But I think most things are like that. Like I've noticed that, I mean, as silly it is, just with like art, whenever, like, if you take your time drawing something, even if you don't have a lot of skill, you can make it look good. Like it doesn't take a lot of like inherent skill. It's like if someone spends X number of hours on a piece of paper, eventually you can get something that looks semi-decent, even from someone who quote unquote doesn't know how to draw or knows like the fundamentals of drawing. But the time that someone is willing to put into something, I think is a lot of that. And really, I mean, do you think that confidence comes with time spent doing something as far as skills go and learned traits?
I mean, to some degree, I think, but also people have certain aptitudes toward things.
True.
But they won't know that they're good at that thing until they try it. And then they won't be confident in that thing until they repeat it several times. So it's being able to like recognize that you have an aptitude, I think, is one thing that kind of comes one thing that will result in confidence. It's trying to find the right way to word
something
that
brings around confidence.
Yeah. And I think that there's times where, I mean, actually there's I read an article a while ago about how to talk about your achievements without sounding like a prick. And that can be a challenge because it's hard to talk about things that you've done without sounding like you're bragging. But for me, at least, I try, when I talk to people about difficult things that I've done or accomplished in my life, it's with the intent to help build that person up. Because I don't do the stuff that I do to prove to everybody how disciplined or how strong or whatever I am. I do it to prove to people how disciplined or how strong they are.
Gotcha.
That they just don't know yet. Like, it's exactly what you were saying a minute ago. Like, someone says, I can't do that. Like, I can't deadlift 400 pounds. Well, no, you can't right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you go to the gym and you practice and you work on your form and you continually give your body that stimulus, that stress, like we were talking about last week, then you will adapt and eventually you will be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can tell you for me with when I first started riding, like bicycles as an adult, that was maybe like 3.5 years ago. And I was just goofing off on a little cheap hybrid bike on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And then I discovered mountain biking and started to have a lot of fun with that. And I remember hearing guys talk about like riding 100 miles in a day. And I was just like, that's crazy. That is fucking crazy. You're a sick fuck. You road bike guys are crazy. What's wrong with you? Like, ride a mountain bike and have fun, you sick fuck. Yeah, I was like, that's nuts. And then after a little while, I was like, you know what? I kind of want to try that. And then I was like, well, how do you do this? And the first time I tried, I fucked up everything. I screwed up the training. I overtrained. I didn't sleep enough. It didn't work out at all. And then the second time is when it actually happened. And I was like, yeah, I'm training to do 100, but 200 is just fucking crazy. And then like 3 days after I rode 100, I was like, could I try 200? And then, but even now, like, it seems like an unattainable thing. But I mean, it's that sort of like increasing potential.
Yeah.
That I thought it was crazy at first, and then I tried it and realized while this hurt really bad, it wasn't as difficult as I expected. It fucking sucked. I mean, my legs definitely hurt.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even with the physical limitations that I have, but then I created some confidence by doing that. And I created enough confidence to at least think about doing something a little bit crazier.
I could see the just seeing it as something so crazy would be motivation to want to do it. You know, it's like hearing people talk about it and seeing it as like, oh man, why would anyone try that? Like, the first part of my mind would be like, well, yeah, could you do that? Like, why not try that? Like, I could totally see why that's something that your mind would like immediately go like, all right, well, you know, let's set a goal. Let's do this.
Yeah, I think I might have quoted it at some point on here before because I talk about it a lot. But at one point, Arnold Schwarzenegger in an interview said that he really liked it when someone said, that's impossible. No one's ever done that before. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, good. So when I do it, then I'll be the first one that did it.
Yeah, yeah.
And see, that's the thing about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Actually, he's a good example. He is really confident, but he has this playful arrogance.
Yeah.
Like, he's not really being serious. Like, you can just tell there's something about like the look on his face, the way the corners of his mouth turn up, and like the look that he's not being entirely serious, and you know that he's not.
Yeah.
And he's not taking himself too seriously. That he's playing a role a little bit, even though he has some confidence and he's good at certain things, and he's done quite a lot. That there's just something about it that's playful.
Quite a lot. As he's had like an incredibly successful career. The way I just like how you downplayed it. Like, I mean, he's done quite a lot. Like, he has no reason not to be.
Yeah, which is funny because his persona does not allow that sort of thing. Like, he can't downplay it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think he's funny because you can just tell that he doesn't really intend to tell you how great he is. I think a lot of the time when he talks about stuff, he wants other people to kind of like climb on board.
Yeah, it's like a very political way of talking. Like, I think that's why he's seen some success in politics. For like, I think he's got the mind and the honestly the charisma and the ability to play into that side of the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Like 100%.
So you would say that he is a better example of confidence than arrogance, right? Even though you did talk about like his playful arrogance, you like that to you isn't like the textbook arrogance that you need to avoid, right?
Yeah, I mean, typically when I when I think of arrogance, I think about someone who is constantly telling you all the great stuff that they've done
Okay.
and all the things that they do, and they are individuals who tend to they offer a perception of something to other people that may or may not be the truth. So it's
Okay.
like something you haven't done, you'll act like you did it. Something that you don't know, you'll act like you know it. Something that you did do, you'll act like it's a much bigger deal than it actually is.
Okay.
Because I mean, like, if you look up here, let me see. If you look up the definition of arrogant on dictionary.com, it is having or revealing an exaggerated sense of one's own importance or abilities.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, haughty, conceited, hubristic, self-important, those are all synonyms. And then we look at confidence, and it's like, let's see, the state of, oh, interesting. There's several definitions in here. One is the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something, a firm trust.
Yeah.
That would be like the confidence in your tires or your motorcycle
Exactly.
I was talking about.
Yep.
The state of feeling certain about the truth of something, meaning I'm confident that the square root of 9 is 3. I feel a feeling of assurance arising from one's appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities.
Okay.
The appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities.
Yeah.
And that's really what I'm talking about. Is that, like, you know, like the conversation that you and I have had, I don't want to like pull you out of the darkness and shine a big bright light on you.
Oh no.
So like before I say what I'm about to say, can I make this personal?
Oh sure, I don't care. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. And obviously I'm going to disclose some things that are maybe a bit vulnerable for me, but it's a conversation you and I had recently when I told you that you seem to have an idea that you're like not funny or interesting or smart or whatever, and that you feel like that's why people don't like you or don't stick around. But the reality is you are like smart and you are cool and you're interesting and you're funny. You're all those things. But the thing that's interesting is what actually repels people is not that you don't have good qualities. It's that you don't know that you do, or you don't acknowledge that you do. That it's someone who you feel like it's frustrating because when someone is unable to acknowledge the good qualities about themselves and to almost be down on themselves all the time, it's like frustrating to people.
Yeah.
Because it's like, dude, what the fuck? Like, you're actually like completely cool. What's wrong with you? Like, what? And then on the other side of things, it's like people that think, well, you know, they don't like me because I've accomplished too much and I make them feel inadequate.
Yeah.
And they just can't handle my greatness. Like, no, they don't like you because you're an arrogant prick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, and stuff like that, you know, like, so I think it's the same that when someone doesn't actually appreciate their own, and I like the fact that they use the word appreciation in the definition. When someone doesn't appreciate their own values, like, and the things that they can do, then they're not confident. Like, people, a lot of the lack of confidence for me, at least when I hear people talk about it, or my experience with it, is a distorted self-image.
Yeah, I think it comes from that a lot. Yeah.
And
because I mean, like you're saying, the whole like definition of it just involves seeing yourself accurately, right? So it's like almost by nature of what it means, it's like if you lack confidence, you have to have a distorted self-image, right? I guess I guess there are people out there who really are just pieces of shit and see themselves as pieces, and they're not confident. So I guess that's a possibility. But
I mean, the funny thing is that most people that are shitty tend to be pretty fucking arront.
True. Yeah.
And
I mean, that is true.
The reason why they're so shitty is because they don't acknowledge how much they suck.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, because, you know, like, nobody likes boasting. Like, everybody thinks that that's distasteful.
Yeah.
And there's reason for that. I mean, because most boasting, I think by nature, boasting is it's bragging in a way that's excessive, like more than you deserve to say or to be or to act like. And, you know, like, I think that when the thing I said earlier about people with like low confidence thinking that if you're not careful, you're going to get arrogant. Like that's no, they're two different things. There's no scale of here's confidence, then becomes arrogance. No.
Well, what do you say about the because I do see like situations where I guess I consider it arrogance and I consider it beneficial, and it's almost like I wish that I could have that type of arrogance because I think that it leads to only positive things. But like the best example that I have of this is like a fighter, like UFC fighter or any kind, like anything like that. Before any match, they're 100% sure they're going to win. There's no chance the opponent could possibly win. Like that kind of mentality is, to me, arrogant, but it is a beneficial type of arrogance. You are completely ignoring the possibility of failure and only saying like, I am the best. There's no like, what do you feel about that? Do you think that that is arrogance, or do you think that that is just a mental exercise in confidence to stay positive?
So I don't know if you saw my face, but when you said that, I was like, oh, here we go. Like I have all the rebuttals. Actually, I was talking to someone, two guys actually at work today about this exact thing.
Okay.
So on the subject of UFC, I won't get too far off the subject, but I still remember the day that UFC discovered marketing.
Okay.
Do you remember Ken Shamrock from WWF?
Yes.
You're aware of the fact that he fought in the first couple UFC events, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And those were actually in Charlotte, North Carolina, at least the first two.
That I did not know. Okay.
Fun fact. So
those are the ones that was it Hoist Gracie that dominated the first few, or which Gracie was it? Okay,
it was Hoist. Yeah,
okay.
He's like the sort of legend. Actually, I have a picture with him.
Oh, that's cool.
At a jiu-jitsu tournament in the middle of nowhere.
Gotcha.
It was kind of cool. You just happened to be there, but so I remember the day because I think it was Tito Ortiz beat the ever-loving shit out of, I think it was Patrick Cote. They basically fed this poor kid to Tito Ortiz. It was pretty sad. I think the guy was a decent fighter where he came from, but I mean, I'll leave my opinions of Tito Ortiz to myself. And a lot of people, even like listening that are familiar with UFC, might not even know who he is because it was like kind of way back. So Eddie Bravo was like, oh, Tito, what's next? And Tito was like, yeah, I'm going to kick Chuck's ass, maybe go after Ken Shamrock. And Ken Shamrock, who is currently fighting in UFC at the time, who was also on WWF, straight up comes down to the cage. He's like, any place, anytime, buddy. I'm like, oh my God. Like, he's going to pick up a folding chair. This is it.
Yeah.
And then he was like, yeah, whatever, Ken. And like, everyone's like holding him back and stuff. And I don't think that was staged at all. And I think that when people saw that, it created all this buzz. And then suddenly they were like, oh shit. Yeah. We have a marketing tool we can use. Yeah. So there's situations where, do I believe that those fighters have that mentality? Yes, 100%. But they're also coached to like,
oh, definitely. Yeah.
Even be like, to make it more appealing. And like, Conor McGregor, they stage shit like at the weigh-ins.
Yeah.
Like, he threw a water bottle at somebody. There's like one time where Dana White was like holding him back during a press conference. It's all staged.
Well, yeah. A lot of that's definitely fake.
But I mean, the reality of the situation specifically with that is that this is combat. I mean, there's rules and there's things there to keep the people safe. There's things they can and can't do, but it's combat. I mean, it's two people, like you're here, he's here, or she, you got Ronda Rousey, people like that. Holly Holm, it's my dude. Yeah, might have a crush on her too. But they're out there like one person versus another. And like, if they thought they were going to lose, they wouldn't do it. And you have to have that mentality. I think the samurai had a belief that you would destroy your opponent based on will alone.
Okay.
So if your will was greater than theirs, you would win the fight. You would win the war. You would win the battle.
Which, yeah, I mean, I agree with the whole, like, if you thought you were going to lose, you wouldn't do it. But
right.
I don't think that it's thinking you're, like, to me, it's like, I mean, I've never been a fighter in any sense like that. So I can't picture like going into actual physical combat, but it's like going into any competitive thing that I've ever done. I've never gone in going like, okay, I'm definitely going to win this. It's like going in, my mentality is like, okay, there's a chance that I can win. To win, I need to do X, Y, and Z. I need, it's like it's always a possibility. I've never had that mentality of like, I know that I am better than this competitor and I'm going to win this match or going to, like, that to me is an interesting, to me it is arrogance, but I don't know if that's correct, because it is like, but almost to textbook over. But what was the definition of arrogance? Like it's over estimating your abilities, basically, right? Or
having or revealing an exaggerated sense of one's own importance or abilities.
Yeah, like to me, that is an exaggerated sense of your abilities, saying like, I know that I'm going to win this, because no matter what, there is a chance you're going to lose. But like I'm saying, I view that as almost completely beneficial. In my experience and from what I've heard, it's like overestimating your abilities leads to overperforming in many situations.
And then sometimes it leads to serious injury.
True. Yeah. I mean, there are definitely situations where it's
like there's like Mike Tyson, like on the subject of fighting. Mike Tyson said, I had to look it up. He said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
That's a good quote.
Like I can give, because I mean, I haven't watched UFC in years, but like I've done combat sports, and as somebody that like was really into it for a while, I can tell you, like, everybody thought they were gonna fucking mangle Chuck Liddell till he hit them.
Gotcha.
Because I saw a video of him just doing this little overhand right punch, hitting a Thai pad, and every time he hit it in the gym, it's just like bam, bam. Like every fucking hit was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Like I think he might be shaking the floor. And I just thought to myself, like, and he's just fucking like, just like a punch, boom. And I'm just like,
sounds like thunder.
He probably doesn't even realize how hard he hits.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, like I've heard people in interviews talk about it, that like you get in the ring with Chuck Liddell, he has this weird loopy fighting, like the way he throws his punches. He keeps his hands down and like leans forward. It's this weird stance that makes no sense. And you think, I'm gonna fuck this guy up. Then he hits you, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Like I've never been hit like that in my life. And I think that with the fighting, you don't really. A lot of that comes from the fact that they don't really know. Like
True.
You can watch a video of someone fighting and understand what they do and their strategy and understand what they're good at, but until they connect, or until they go for like a double leg takedown or like a suplex, and you feel helpless, like you can't stop it.
Yeah.
You don't really know what fighting that person's like until you're in there with them. So a lot of this is, at least from my experience in fighting, that you have to think like, I will break him. Like that's what you have to believe when you go in there, because I mean, it's a fight. I mean, you and another person are using the thing in the most direct control of your mind in the physical world, which is your own body, to hurt each other and to put each other on the mat and impose your will. And I think that there's some benefit to it, but I think that I don't know that I would call it an exaggerated sense, because these individuals know like that they're basically like, in that context of like a professional fight, maybe not in a street fight, but in the context of a professional fight, these people are essentially living weapons, and they all know this. And I think that it's not until the context of fighting that specific person that you can understand whether or not it was an exaggeration. And even the fans, we don't really know until we watch them. Like we hear both of these people talk all this shit.
Yeah.
And then they get in there, and then it's not until you see maybe the first round or the first exchange of punches or the first takedown that you're like, oh, this person really, really, really overestimated their abilities.
Yeah.
And then you want to cover your eyes because it just happens to be the one that you're a fan of who overestimated their abilities.
The one you have money on, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that it's always a benefit, because for me, like, especially with my experience with like mountain biking, if you're cocky going into something that you can't handle, you will get hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people that have broken bones.
But I mean,
I know people that have broken a few bones at one time because of that.
But outside of the realm of physical activities where you could actually get hurt, if you take that same idea and you just apply it to day-to-day life and ability, like just situations that require you to stick your neck out in a way that isn't actual physical danger, I feel like that same sense of just always feeling like, yeah, I can do this, I'm gonna do this, like that can be beneficial in a lot of ways. And I don't see many situations where it is detrimental other than the physical, like dangers of.
Yeah. I mean, because what you're talking about sounds more like ambition to me.
Yeah,
it
but
sounds
it's
more like determination.
But like, see, to me, yeah, determination's a good word, because like ambition to me still leaves that gray area of like accepting that failure could be a possibility. Like the mentality that I'm talking about that I've seen is almost completely disregarding that there could ever be a possibility of failure. It's just saying like, I know I'm going to do this, I know I'm going to get this job. I know I'm, like any situation, like going into a job interview, just like for me, walking into a job interview is like, okay, I want this interview to go the best I can. I want to prepare for it in a way. There's a chance I get this. There's a chance I don't. Versus a lot of people, it's just like, no, I'm perfect for this job. I'm going into this. I know that I'm going to get this. They're stupid if they don't hire me. Like that kind of mentality is like, to me, it is like arrogant, but it's good. It is like, and it seems to lead to good results.
Well, the determination over whether or not that behavior is arrogant is completely relative.
True. Yeah.
There's situations where there's a certain job that I might go in for that, because I even told my sister recently, I was talking about the possibility of, semi-changing careers. I mean, to be fair, like, I mean, I am pretty happy where I am now, and there's some things that are going on, some changes that'll be made that actually might make me really want to stay with my company for a lot longer.
Oh, good.
And
Okay.
I mean, I'd like to, honestly, but it just depends how things go. But I was talking to her about the possibility of kind of changing to like more of a software sales position.
Okay.
And I told her, like, if they interview me, they'll hire me. And my sister was like, huh? Like, I was like, they will hire me if they interview me, because I have everything that somebody wants in someone that sells software. Like I understand computer stuff. I have a background in the business. I understand the technical side of things, so I can answer technical questions for the nerd in the room. But I also have a good personality for selling things to the individuals who may not actually have technical questions. Because the biggest complaints that people have, technical staff members have, is this fucking salesperson doesn't know anything about, ABC. Yes. He doesn't know anything about lab equipment. He doesn't know anything about, he has to like, oh, I need to go find that information. And the reality is that you should expect that from a salesperson. It's kind of unreasonable to expect them not to reach out to a technical resource.
Yeah.
But when they don't have to, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
This person knows their stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
But to me, like, that might have come off arrogant. But I mean, I don't feel like it was arrogant at all. I was like, I have everything necessary that these people would want for this position. I mean, I'm not going to go in and be like, yeah, man, X-ray technician, they're stupid if they don't hire me. It's like, I might fucking kill someone. Like, someone could die from radiation poisoning because of me. Like, I'm exaggerating. Like, that really happens with X-rays. But, it's like, that's just stupid, like, yacht salesman, fuck yeah. Like, no one's going to buy a yacht from me. I think that because that might have sounded arrogant, but to me it wasn't an exaggeration. Like, I'm an IT guy with technical skills, technical understanding, with a salesperson's personality. And I'm a pretty fucking good communicator. I mean, I'm a co-host on a podcast, for God's sake.
See, I definitely envy that, though, because even in the situation where, if I could put myself in those same shoes, there's a position that I know that I have. How did you word it? You have what they're looking for that position. Even in that sense, I could still never see myself saying like, oh, if they interview me, they'll hire me, because I never know that I am in the top X% for that position. You get what I'm saying? Like, even if I have the bases covered, I could still see a large number of people that are better suited for it than me. So it's like, dude, I always have that doubt that it's like, it's stupid, because it's it's what I call realism, but of course it's not. It's just it's being pessimistic, probably, right? Or it's like yeah.
I mean, I had a conversation with my mom recently about how difficult it is for people who think realistically not to like end up cynical.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
There's a fine line,
realistically,
right?
Yeah, to not get there. But I think that. Do you remember our anxiety episode?
Of course, yeah.
Like, what you're talking about sounds like anxious thoughts to me. because it's all about others. It's all about, well, what if I'm
True.
not in the, because my whole idea is screw everyone else that's applying for this job. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care like what you look like on paper. When they talk to me, they hire me. It's that fucking simple. Because you might look amazing on paper, but you step in that fucking room, especially for like a sales position. Sorry, like, I'm a better salesperson, so I'll sell myself better than you can. And then when they hire me, I'll do better in the position because of my sales skills. Because a lot of salespeople I talk to tell me all the time, everybody has to sell. And it's true.
Yeah.
Like what you were talking about earlier, selling people on ideas and things like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of it doesn't require manipulation or disingenuousness. It just requires you to be understanding of benefits and to have logically thought about something from every angle.
Yeah.
And being able to address every question.
Yep.
But I think this whole idea of like worrying about if you're in the top 10 or not, who gives a shit? Like, you are you. You're time, motherfucker. You're the dude that's gonna go in there and do the thing. And
it's not like being worried about it. It's just having that level of, it's like, if I know I'm applying for a job, I know that there is a limited number of positions. Just having the qualifications of like what they're looking for doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be the only one to get that position. You know what I mean? Like, that's where my mind goes. It's like, I mean, it is like always looking at the possibility of failure, which I know is not a good thing. That's why I'm saying, like, I know that this, like, ignoring failure is almost beneficial in so many what benefit is there for me to think realistically about my percentage chance of getting that job? Absolutely none, right? Walking into that job saying, like, if they actually get to know me and interview me, they're going to hire me. That is the only good mentality to have. There's no benefit to walk in saying like, oh, well, even if I'm perfect for this, there's a chance someone else will get it. Like,
yeah, I mean, and I agree that I agree that that's probably the best mentality, but I don't know. I feel a little at odds about defining that specific behavior as arrogance. Now, like I said, like if I am like I said, fuck yeah, yacht salesman. Like if I think I'm gonna go in there and like just woo everybody, what my dad used to say to me before a job interview: if you can't baffle them with your intellect, dazzle them with your bullshit. Like for a yacht salesman, I can do neither.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
Like I couldn't even bullshit my way well enough to get into that position. So like that would be stupid. Like that would be completely arrogant. Or if I had 3 years experience being an IT person instead of a decade, and I went in thinking I was going to get some kind of like team lead position, that would be fucking arrogant.
Yeah. That's definitely exaggerating.
The other thing is like it's really important to have some degree of self-awareness too.
Yes.
Because if you don't, then that's where you'll begin to be a little arrogant about certain things. And the other thing is, did you ever see Hustle and Flow?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Yet another Terrence Howard film. I feel like every script that guy reads, he's like, Oscar.
I like Terrence Howard. He's a good actor.
I like him in a couple movies. I did not like him in Iron Man.
Yeah, I think Don
Cheadle's way better.
Don Cheadle's a much better fit. Yeah.
Yeah. A little less pretentious as an actor, I think. But whatever. Terrence Howard, if you're listening, because I know you are.
He's a big fan.
You're not War Machine. I'm sorry. Don Cheadle is War Machine.
God, I love the scene of him looking at the suit and like, next time,
baby. No, and it's like, no, they're gonna replace you, bud. You're gonna want too much money or some shit,
dude,
or too many M&Ms in your candy dish in your trailer.
Please tell me you noticed in the very first line Rhodey says in Iron Man 2 when they replace him that it's like it's totally there for the fans. So Tony's on trial for the Iron Man technology, and like they bring in Rhodes as a witness, and he kind of walks in. So like Tony the character is surprised to see him there because here's his friend that's actually going to testify basically against him in this trial, and it's a different actor. And when Tony stands up to shake his hand, Don Cheadle looks at him and goes, "It's me. I'm here. Let's get over it." And just like, and it's like, it's such a meta line of like, all right, yeah, like,
dude, I like just watched that movie the other day, like rewatched it, and I didn't even notice that. But this is a very good segue, and I honestly didn't do it on purpose. We mentioned using Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Tony Stark, Iron Man as examples. Because I mean, I think it's a good one to use because Marvel those films became sort of a cultural phenomenon. So I
Yeah.
think most people are familiar with them. So, but the thing is I mentioned Tony Stark as being arrogant, but is he really?
He doesn't actually like. He doesn't over exaggerate his abilities, right? I mean,
he's very cavalier.
Yeah, he's bold. Yeah, definitely.
But it's like when he says, like when Steve Rogers is like, "What are you without the suit?" He's like, "I don't know, a philanthropist, playboy billionaire."
Yeah, and
which is like all true statements.
Exactly.
So it's like,
yeah, he's not exaggerating. Then yeah, I mean, even in Endgame, he did solve time travel in like 3 days, right? It's like he just had to think about it for a weekend and he figured it out. Like he is a genius. That character is like at the top echelon of like mental ability in that universe, right?
It's true. I mean, he's like if Bill Gates were a superhero.
Yeah.
Because Bill Gates is unbelievably smart. It's actually ridiculous. He's one of those people that's so smart that I wish he didn't exist because he makes me feel so dumb.
Yeah.
But I think it's, now that I think about it, like, because I mentioned that just sort of haphazardly, I think the Italians call it sprezzatura. It's this idea of doing something very difficult,
okay,
or completing a difficult task while making it seem as if you've done it with ease. Okay, there's people have sort of translated that to like fashion somehow, like where sprezzatura is like elegantly disheveled, but I don't know if there's any truth to the actual concept in Italian culture.
It makes sense,
or even what region of Italy that's in. It might not even be the whole country.
But it's like when you have the perfectly constructed bedhead hair. That it's like, it looks like you just rolled into bed, but there was like actually a lot of design that went into it.
Yeah, you spent lots of time figuring it out. Or, it looks like you just kind of threw an outfit together, but it was actually very well thought out. Or you just, I don't know, single-handedly averted a disaster at work in a couple days, like in a fashion that looked like you weren't even stressed out about it. Like that's kind of, I think, what Tony Stark is doing in the movies is he exudes this idea of ease. But the cool thing is like, and this has maybe little to do with the actual subject of our podcast, but he has panic attacks in the third movie.
Yeah, so right after the battle in New York, he freaks out. Yeah.
To me, it seems like there is some deep insecurity that he is sort of compensating for with a lot of these ideas, like even like the womanizing thing. If you look at most specifically heterosexual males that participate in like womanizing type behavior, a lot of them are very insecure. Yeah, they're trying to get some sort of esteem or some gratification or some justification for their existence or some kind of way to be confident by sleeping with a bunch of people. And eventually everyone figures out that that's not such a good thing. But I almost feel like if you look at how that character treats women, it seems like he's actually desperately wishing for something more, someone he can really feel like he can confide in, and that he feels like is someone trustworthy as an equal. I
don't know if you've gotten there yet, but spoiler alert, it's Pepper Potts. Don't
yeah. There you go.
I know you've gotten there, but yeah, like he obviously, like in the first few movies though, he is kind of floundering like that, right? Like she was there the whole time, but yeah, he was kind of I get what you're saying.
And there's also like being terrified, like a fear of committing to something. But I think a lot of what we're talking about, how we had the conversation, I can't remember what subject it was, but you were talking about the like kids that are like identified as being academically gifted and all this other stuff, and they don't really have to try in school, and they have all this potential, but they're afraid to like do something, because in case they fail, now instead of being a whole bunch of really promising potential, they're now an actual person that's failed. I think that sometimes a lack of confidence, because I think that fear is a big motivator in a lot more human behavior than most of us are willing to admit.
I think it's the base of a lot. I think you can think you're experiencing one emotion that's driving you, and when you really boil down a few layers, it's actually fear.
Yeah. Like And fear, I think I've stated this before, and I think it's true that fear is a survival mechanism. And
Yeah.
in the society that we've created where we're a bunch of animals pretending to be humans, it doesn't always work the way it's supposed to. And I think that we think of a lot of things as being threats to our survival. And I'd like to do an episode actually on reasons versus excuses.
Ooh, I like that.
Figure out like which ones are which. And I think that sometimes people try to sort of downplay their abilities or aren't actually realistic about who they are and what they're good at because they're afraid of actually leaning into those things that they're good at because they could just be a miserable screw up at it.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes a lack of confidence is a fear of actually knowing what you're good at and going after it.
Or sometimes
it's a fear of seeming like a dick. And I can tell you that. So it's funny because you and I grew up together, and we spent most of our younger years, teenage years, together. Like we played in rock and roll bands and like hung out at the practice space together and stuff. Went on a trip to the beach our senior year. Told the college kids that we went to UNC. That was funny.
That was funny.
Yeah. But so we grew up together, and I noticed that there's like a lot of things that personality traits I think you and I shared that, after our first couple years out of high school, you and I didn't really hang out much. We started to sort of diverge. That I don't know what it was, but I can give a weird example. Tony Robbins, on some TV documentary thing he did, he was talking to a guy that had a stutter. Okay. And in this case, I think he might have just gotten lucky that he was trying to figure out if there was a time, because this kid didn't always have a stutter. He was like in his early to mid 20s at the time, but he didn't used to have a stutter when he was younger. And he asked him, like, is there some place that you got that from? Like, is there something, some idea that you had of something good or beneficial that made you think that this was the way to be? And they actually narrowed it down to like a character in a TV show.
That's interesting.
So it's funny because I actually realized that I do a thing, or I've started to kind of try to stop, but I emulate the behavior of the character Dan Humphrey in Gossip Girl.
I don't remember
sometimes.
That character.
I watched it with a girl that I dated, and a lot of the girls that we hung out with, like her friends that we hung out with, and I watched it with them sometimes.
Okay.
Honestly, I really love the show. Chuck Bass is one of the most hilariously complex characters ever.
Okay.
And people make fun of it. I don't care. I love the fucking show. It's great. The ending was stupid, but other than that, but Dan would do this thing where he would sort of act like vaguely confused about things and sort of have not really a stutter, but it was like this weird stammer he would do. And the thing is all the girls I hung out with her when we dated were like, oh my God, Dan is so cute. He's so cute.
Yeah.
Like, that one is cute and he's an idiot. That one's cute. He's an asshole, but Dan's so great. Like, the whole idea is that they engineer it that way. They engineer the character that way.
Yeah.
They make you have the most sympathy for him. So I emulated a lot of his behavior for a long time. So it's funny.
Was it a subconscious thing, or do you think it was it conscious or subconscious?
It was 100% subconscious.
Okay.
Because it wasn't until a while later that I saw the same guy. I forget the actor's name. He's the stalker guy on the show You.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know his name, but yeah, I know who you're talking about. Okay.
He has a strange name. Guy's a brilliant fucking actor. Like,
that
he does a great job. And the writing was part of it too in You, but he does a great job of fucking up your moral compass in that show.
Yeah. And
he's perfect because the character he played in Gossip Girl was very lovable.
Okay.
So he was perfect for that role. And it was weird because one of my female friends, this is where it started. One of my female friends, when the show came out, told me that I reminded her of this character on You. I'm like, okay, what's he like? Oh, he's a stalker and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, thank you very fucking much. But then she said something like vaguely sexual about how he made her want to whatever, blah 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 blah. I was like, oh, okay, I'm okay with that now.
He's
So
the
then I
stalker, but
watched
like
the
the
show.
sexy stalker.
Yeah, and I watched the show and I turned it on. I'm like, oh shit, it's Dan from Gossip Girl.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a goddamn second.
Mm-hmm. You started like,
I started thinking about things like I remind you of him. Like what is it about me? And I was like, I started thinking like Gossip Girl, Tony Robbins, those girls dance so cute. Oh my god, I do this. Oh shit.
That's funny.
Like I'm one of Tony Robbins' subjects. Shit. So I think that, and all this to say that I think that sometimes what happens with a lot of us that lack confidence is because we're surrounded by all these people that we think are cocky, like douchebags.
Mm-hmm.
And we try so hard not to be them that we overcompensate and essentially put ourselves in the position
Yeah.
where we need to man up. I'm sorry, I can't even say it with a straight face anymore. But I like in that No More Mr. Nice Guy book, he talks about having dads that seem like assholes.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be your dad who's kind of an asshole. So you overcompensate and turn into this person that's like not even humble anymore. They're just meek.
Yep. Well, I can definitely identify with that. And I know trying to take inventory of this mental state and what my part in it for years, I've realized that for me, there's like a fear of being wrong. And I don't know why, but it's like I for some reason I place this value in being right. And it's so much easier to be right if you don't express confidence in yourself. You know what I mean? Like, cause you can exude low confidence and not try at something and fail, and you were right the whole time. And that's the easiest path. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you're always correct. And even though it's a negative experience because you're correct about something bad that happened, you're always right. You always knew that was going to happen. You get what I'm saying? Like it's a shitty like situation that you put yourself in, but it's like honestly, for some reason, it came from this. I shouldn't say it came from, but it aligns with this desire to be correct with things. And like I've tried for years to fight that, and I've gotten like much better at it. But it's like I realized years ago that it like, yeah, it comes from like, for some reason I place this value on wanting to be right.
Yeah. How would you say? I'm curious now. You've interested me, sir. How would you say that the idea of valuing being right ties in with your self-concept? Like how much is that a part of your identity?
Well, I mean, I've struggled to make it not part of my identity because I've realized that it's a stupid way to be. But I know for years that it, and that's a hard question to answer as far as it tying into my identity. I don't feel like I identify with that, but I do feel like when I took inventory of who am I and what values do I hold, I did recognize that was there. That was a strong one, that it's like, ooh, I do like the just being technically right in a conversation, things like that. I like, well, actually, the tomato is a fruit. You know, like that kind of shit. Like, I don't like. I know it's annoying, and I try not to do that. But it's like I do place value in being correct in things.
I would actually call that behavior. Love you, buddy, but I would say that behavior to me, I would objectively, I'll say subjectively because it is to me. I would subjectively define that behavior as arrogant. Because like if someone that always likes to be right, to me that's like ugh. Now it's different versus someone who always thinks they're right. Because actually, I said this to my nephew recently. I said, "Hey, you know the clearest indication that someone is usually wrong?" He's like, "What?" Like, when they think they're always right.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think that I'm not think you're under the impression that you're right all the time, but that you have this like need to be that way. And like for me, it's like same nephew. Conversation a year ago. We were talking. He said like about something raining on an airplane. I was like,
"What?
That doesn't happen at cruising altitude." He's like,
Yeah.
"What?" And I was like, yeah, do you ever look out the window on a plane and notice what's beneath you? He's like, the ground? No, you're above the clouds. It's like airplanes cruise at 30,000 feet and the troposphere is lower than that.
Mm-hmm.
And
you may
he
fly
was like,
through the rain getting up there, but
yeah, you might like as you're, I said like as you take off or land maybe, but like when you're up in the air, it doesn't rain on the plane. It doesn't happen because you're above where weather happens. And so he was 12 at the time. He'd actually just turned 12. And I showed him on my phone, like this is 30,000 feet. This is where planes cruise. And I can show you here, this plane's cruising altitude, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, here's the troposphere. And this is how far up it is.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't rain on planes when they're up in the air cruising.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I don't like this. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't like being wrong.
Yeah, fuck that.
I was like, well, being wrong is okay. Being wrong is good because next time you can be right.
Yeah,
now
being wrong is learning.
Know what's true.
Yeah,
and that's good. You learn something, and like I'm at a point now where I think that right wrong is so black and white. It's like almost like with so many things, it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah,
like there's so much more nuance, especially the kind of conversations you and I have. Like we talk about stuff that's open to a lot of interpretation.
Yeah,
and
there's
like,
no right and wrong in philosophy, right? Like,
right. I mean, right.
Right. That is correct.
But there's agreement and disagreement, and then there's like support, and there's good arguments, bad arguments. There's arguments that are unsound, arguments that are invalid. There's analogies that suck.
I do kind of like that though, because you could have a idea that's wrong, but if it's supported with good arguments, it could actually be like a good idea, even though it's like actually objectively wrong. Yeah,
flat Earth, baby.
Flat Earth. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, actually, a lot of their arguments really suck. If you really look at them, there's holes everywhere. But that's neither here nor there. But I think that like it's that I love being wrong.
Okay.
Because it means I learned something, and I love failing because it means I tried something. And actually, I ask people often a question that I've pondered, which is, what's your favorite thing about being alive? And I tell people that it's failure, because I like failing because it means that I tried something and it was difficult and it was outside of my comfort zone, which we're doing a podcast on very soon. The comfort zone one day when our guest is available. But it means that I tried and it was difficult and it was uncomfortable and it was hard. And then that's why I failed. But I also like being wrong because the more times I throw ideas out there, the more I can figure out that they're incorrect, which is a major reason why I think I don't like the idea of deplatforming people that have ideas that individuals disagree with.
Yeah.
Because you can give that individual the opportunity to be wrong. If you just let them say what they have to say and then wait till the Q&A. And if you can give them something solid enough and your perspective that you disagree with them on is based largely enough in like valid and sound logic, then maybe that person can realize they're wrong and then they can learn.
Yeah. You should be able to fight ideas with ideas. Yeah.
Right. Assuming that person's not too arrogant. Yeah. So like, I mean, that's funny, man. Cause like what you're talking about isn't even really a lack of confidence.
Well, while thinking about it, I wonder if okay, so having a lack of the third definition of confidence that we talked about, the one that means more about like self-confidence, like just taking an inventory of your own abilities and having a lack of that, I feel drove me to putting more weight in confidence in things that I know are correct, like facts, if that makes sense. Like those are the new tires I can put on my bike that feel sturdy. You know what I mean? When I read something in an article or something and I know that it's a fact, I know that it's right. So that's something that I can be confident in. If I lack a little bit of that self-confidence but I know these facts that I can be confident in, that almost becomes a pseudo something I can replace that confidence with. It is like, oh, okay, I can do this and I can be right. I can know that this fact is correct, and that's something that I could have a little bit of confidence in. I wonder if it like became a replacement like that. It feels like that's something that I may have been subconsciously doing, and like rather than putting it on myself to like build that self-confidence, like oh no, we can just replace it. We have faux confidence here. We can learn these facts and we can be confident in them.
Yeah, we can go back to the subject of fighters too, because I can on the search of being right or wrong. I mean, I think I'll stay on the thing. It's a good spot to be. That I can go into a conversation thinking my perspective is completely 100% fucking right, objectively correct. Yeah, lefty politics, bitch. Because like I was way on like that side for a good while, and then I realized, oh, I shouldn't just tick a bunch of fucking boxes. I should probably figure out what I think is true.
Yeah.
And like I'd go into the conversation thinking like, man, you're just wrong, fucking Republican. Let's talk about this, stupid head. And then like we'd get in the conversation, and I would throw all these ideas out there, and then I'd actually be, oh wait, oh, you make a good point. Oh shit, I said. Oh, really? Oh, damn. I never thought about it like that.
Was it like being hit by Chuck Liddell?
Yeah, it's like goes back to the UFC thing. Like, I'm the best motherfucking fighter in the my face.
Yep.
And it's like everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the face.
But doesn't that mean that it's arrogance then? Because you overestimated your abilities.
I think so.
Like, yeah.
I think so. So now I think that the thing about arrogance is I think that if you can be realistic about something, because there's a degree of arrogance where, the phrase, you can't tell them nothing.
Yeah.
There's a degree of arrogance that someone gets to where you can't tell them a damn thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like even if they're faced with like pretty irrefutable facts or a very, 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 very sound argument, that they are just like, that person's just never gonna get it. It's never going to sink in. They'll never consider that they could possibly be wrong.
Yeah. Some people are just unreachable.
Yeah. Someone could be like a little bit cocky and go into a situation and then have the degree of like self-awareness or have the degree of realism to recognize and realize, oh wait, this doesn't really make sense. Like what this person's saying or doing is obviously, I need to think about this thing a little harder.
Yeah.
So it's like when you go into the ring or the cage thinking, I'm gonna fuck this guy up, and that dude beats your motherfucking ass. Well, then it's like, I need to work on this, and this, and then I will be a better fighter and I will come back better. What's his name? Not Nick, Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
Nick's the other brother. When Conor McGregor got his ass handed to him by Nate Diaz.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, it's pretty bad. It's pretty fucking bad. Actually, a friend of mine invited me out to watch the fight, and I was like, Jesus H, this is awful. Because it's like, I kind of despise Conor McGregor, but I kind of love the guy. So I was like, yes, no, no, I don't. Oh, poor guy. I don't care. He's an asshole. But come on, not his face.
Wait.
And then like the next fight, the rematch, he mangled Nate Diaz because he was like, well, I was a cocky, stupid bastard, and let me watch this tape, and let me think about where I was mentally, and let me think how I trained, and let me get better, and let me do this again and see what the fuck happens now that I have suspended my love for myself and my completely excessive confidence in my abilities, my arrogance.
Well, that makes me wonder then. So in some situations, can the difference between arrogance and confidence really be just down to the outcome? Where like, okay, so like leading up to that first fight, if Conor would have easily won, would all of the shit he was talking have just been confidence, or would it have still been arrogance? Because if you're thinking that you're the best and talking all sorts of mad shit, and then you easily win, you weren't actually overestimating your abilities. You were, you know what I mean? So it's like sometimes it comes down to just like the outcome of an event determining if it was confidence or arrogance.
Well, I mean, Conor McGregor is a very good fighter.
Yes.
His game when he's on his feet and standing up and striking is good.
Yep.
He seems to have decent takedown defense from what I've seen of him. He has a very strange rhythm that works. He hits people from weird angles, and he has a somewhat unorthodox style of fighting that really, really works. So he is a really good fighter. It's just that there's this degree that he got to with pumping up his abilities and his thoughts that was, I think, arrogant because it was excessive to his abilities. Like, bro, you're a really, really good fighter, but you're a kid.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true.
He's like 24, isn't he?
Something. Yeah, he's young.
He's like really,
like that,
really young. Like he's a kid to us. Like,
but it's like in that situation. Let's go full hypothetical. That attitude, but he really is undefeated. Is it confidence until someone actually beats him? You know what I mean? Like until
he's actually our age, but that's okay.
Oh, is he really? Wow, I thought he was a few years younger. Wow,
me too.
He looks great for his age.
He's 31.
But no, so like, but you know what I'm saying though. So let's say like completely hypothetical. Let's say we're having this discussion about Conor, but his record is literally X and 0 at that time. Completely undefeated, never been touched. Is that just confidence? When you, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like you really are the best at that point.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between, look, man, I'm a really good fighter, and I intend to go in here and give it the best that I can. And I think that if on that day I give you 100% of who I am and what I can do, I think I'm gonna win. And I don't think there's a lot you can do about it. Then there's like, oh, I'm gonna fuck you up, man. Like, you got nothing. Like all the stuff that
it's
like, you will do nothing. Like all the stuff that he would say. Like maybe that was the worst Conor McGregor impression ever. I
like your Irish accent. I really did.
I think it sounded like Northern British. I think I might have fucked it up. Fucked it up. But like all that stuff is clearly an exaggeration.
Well, and like you brought up, a lot of it is for the cameras, right?
Yeah.
Like
and I mean he's a showman. Like people love to hate the guy.
Yep.
And the guy shows up and he basically shows up in a Joker costume for half of his fights. Like wears these crazy suits.
Yeah.
Has that weird little walk thing he does.
The walk is really strange.
And I think that it's the exaggeration of those abilities. So, I'm actually thinking now that someone can have a reason to be confident, but they can exaggerate those reasons to a point that really causes them to be arrogant. So I don't necessarily think I was correct in saying that it's not possible for confidence to get to the point where it becomes arrogance. But for me, the reason why it becomes arrogance is because you've stopped being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And everyone else, and you've started to make everything like a big deal. Like, for instance, anybody that's like, I did an Iron Man. Yeah, I'm kind of awesome. Like, bro, shut the fuck up. Thousands of people have done Iron Man events, okay? Like, I get that it was difficult. Stop acting like you're the only fucking person in the world that did or the only person that can.
But at the same time, coming from someone that struggles with stuff like that, I think the way you said it, of course, isn't good, but I think being able to be proud in doing that is a good thing. For someone to say like, yeah, I did this and I'm proud of it, like that is a good thing. Being around other people and just boasting about it for no reason, completely out of context, is probably not the best way to carry yourself. That's probably going to rub people the wrong way. But I do think that it is a good thing to do something difficult, difficult is just a subjective word, right? If you did something that was difficult for you, I think that it is very good to be proud of that. How vocal you are about your pride may then lead to arrogance, but even that, like, that is not an over exaggeration of their ability. They're just simply, they're exaggerating the importance of what they did, right? So it is something they actually did, but they're kind of like Yeah, they're exaggerating the importance of it. That makes sense. Okay.
I think that most people in whatever culture they inhabit have an idea of taste, like being in good taste. And I think that people understand what is distasteful. And when you intuitively have the understanding that the way in which you're speaking of achievements is distasteful, then I think that that's a place where someone, whoever that individual happens to be, needs to sort of like rein things in a bit. Like, for instance, I was talking to because I'm like super friendly, so I was talking to a stranger in a pub, and in a little Irish pub in High Point.
Okay.
And we were small talking, and out of fucking nowhere, he somehow got the subject on how he was a power lifter. Like, how the fuck did we get here?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's weird. So a lot of the time you can tell someone is pretty cocky if they do whatever they can to get the conversation there.
Yeah,
especially like a casual conversation with like a perfect stranger or someone you just met.
I mean, sometimes it could be organic, but like I wasn't part of the conversation, so I don't know like how forced that segue felt. But like
I was a little tipsy, so I'm not exactly sure, and it was a while ago. So it was like it was really weird. Like, it made no sense. Like, speaking of Seinfeld, I'm a power lifter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like, it wasn't that nuts. I'm exaggerating a bit, but
I do understand from the side of like, depending on how much of your life something is like that, it may just come through in every conversation. You know what I mean? Like if he's like a real power lifter that's in the gym 6 days a week, like there's a good chance that that's just what's constantly on his mind. And there's a, like, like you're thinking of everything in terms of that. I mean, look at the way that like, I've tried to stop doing it, but it's like, like you talk about a struggle and it's like, I liken it to lifting weights in a certain way. You know what I mean? It's like your mind goes to what you do.
But like, you're using those as like appropriate metaphors.
Okay.
You're not like, I'm Mr. Superstar weightlifter.
Okay.
In fact, in our last podcast, I actually listened to a portion of it. You said, I noticed that like you're for de-stressing, you're more into the endurance thing, and I'm more into like lifting heavy things. And you were like, heavy for me.
Yeah.
So you had some like degree, you were being humble about it. Like, you weren't acting like I am the strongest man in the world. You were like I lift weights, but that's just something that the conversation gets back to. But it's another thing when people start boasting. The other thing is I think I mentioned this guy, but didn't say that he was a powerlifter before. But every part of him, everything he did, he was completely predisposed with looking as tough as possible.
I think I remember you talking about this guy.
You could have seen the way this guy put his jacket on.
Gotcha,
he was like, oh yeah. Like, I was just like, what the fuck, bro? Like, you seriously? So like, it was clear that that was just part of his tough guy persona.
Either that, maybe he just really is that tough. You don't know. That could be all natural. He could just be exuding BDE, and he really is that.
Oh, BDE. Okay, I was like, what? Okay, I remember now. Yeah, I don't know, maybe, but doubtful. But it was clear that a lot of that was to compensate. And like,
and he went outside and got in his 8-inch lifted Jeep and
18 inch lifted diesel for no reason.
True.
Truck that he doesn't tow anything with. But it's like, actually, I'm pretty sure he was driving a truck. And I think it was lifted. I don't know how much. There's certain situations in which arrogance is a clear, someone clearly covering up their own insecurities.
Yeah, definitely.
As someone who thinks that they're not worth much, they haven't done much, and like that's in 12 Rules for Life. One of the rules that Jordan Peterson has is tell the truth, or at least don't lie.
Yeah.
And he actually talked about how he tried to sort of catch himself lying, and he recognized how often he did it. And the thing is like, I do too, and you do too, and everyone listening does too, and all my neighbors do. And if my cat could talk, he probably fucking would.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
We all lie all the time about the dumbest shit, and
a lot of times to ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, that's the worst thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of the lying that we do to other people is to create some kind of image of ourselves.
Yeah.
And to give people some idea of who we are that may or may not be true, or genuine. And I think that a lot of arrogant behavior is a way to get other people to think things about you that may or may not be true. And the thing is that as I get older, at least I think as most people get older, they can tell when someone is bullshitting.
Yeah, you get a bit of a radar for it, right?
Yeah. And like there's a time like where I can give an example. And if anybody that I work with is listening, they know. And if the person in particular that I'm talking about is listening, they know too. I was talking to a coworker about, and you'll probably understand the point of outrage in this conversation for me. We got on the subject of music, and I said something about like one of my favorite bassists, and if you talk about your favorite bassist, it means only one thing: you must play bass. Because people that have favorite bassists, that there's no such thing as a person that has a favorite bassist that doesn't play bass.
It's weird. Yeah, a lot of people have favorite guitarists, even if they don't play guitar.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting.
No one will say I love Bootsy Collins. They'll be like, Parliament's a groove, bro. Like they're never gonna, but they'll never think about Bootsy. And a lot of people, I say Bootsy Collins, are you sure he plays bass? It's like, because I might have maybe heard his name before. I'm like, no, he's a bassist. He's probably the godfather of funk. Nice. You don't know who Bootsy Collins is?
I know he's the godfather of funk, and I know he played the bass. That's about it.
Okay. So I mentioned something about like he said something about a band, and I said, oh, one of my favorite bassists is in that band, and I think it might have been like Mudvayne or Bella Fleck or something like that. Okay, you know who Victor Wooten is, though, right?
I do know who Victor Wooten is, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Good. All right. We can still be friends. Thank the Lord. But I said to this dude, like, something about playing bass, and he said, yeah, you know, I started playing bass, too, because I tried to play guitar, and I wasn't good enough to play guitar.
That's not a good reason to play bass.
And I was like, ooh. It's like, people like you. That's the thought that I had in my head. And I was like, you know, a lot of people somehow think that people decide to play the bass guitar because they weren't good enough to play guitar. But if you play bass because you weren't good enough to play guitar, it just means you're not a good musician.
Yeah, you're just a bad bassist. Right? Well, okay. I would argue that like only in pop punk music does that make sense. Pretty much any other genre, it's still like, but in that specific genre, all the bass is doing is like the root note of the power chord of the guitar, right? So it is like
all the guitar is doing is playing a power chord.
Yeah,
they're playing the same instrument.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying though, is like in a lot of other music, the bass is actually taking more of a percussive part in the rhythm section versus it just being literally a simplified version of the guitar riff. But
like if you look at jazz in particular, it's like the bass's job to make sure every note in that chord gets heard in a very unique way.
Yep.
And that, at least when you look at like the groovier sort of jazz R&B type music. But when I said that to him, I was like, you know, that just means that you're not a good musician. And to me, I found it insulting. Like, I play bass because I fucking love the instrument.
Yeah.
Like, I play bass because I'm a bassist. Like, I didn't think, oh, I can't play guitar, I'm going to play bass. That just means you suck at both.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, it means that you're not good at either, and you didn't want to put in the work to get good at either. And you'd rather play like simple bass lines than like a church band where you play fucking whole notes every fucking measure. Or you just play a whole note tied to a shitload of other whole notes and a bunch of other measures.
Yep.
Like how I just like plucked my bass there.
Yeah. You played really high too. That was up here.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to get it seen on camera like Tom Morello.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Even though Tom Morello's a guitarist, but whatever, you know what I'm talking about. He plays his guitar real high.
He does, yeah.
Slopping the bass. So then like he starts like talking about like, oh, all county band, all district band, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, you boasting about like which like all county whatever bands like that you were in doesn't do anything for me. Not to mention they were all lies. I knew that they were. I could tell like by his demeanor and the way he was saying it.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is the same guy. Like he was talking about his daughter's college. He started rattling off impressive statistics about his kid's school. I'm like,
yeah, that's
what?
Yeah.
Like, why?
Who cares?
Like everything. You can't talk about anything. You talk to the guy about whiskey. You talk to the guy about guns. Everything.
Yeah, that's
it's like about
weird.
how amazing he is at everything. And I'm like, bro, at a certain point, you got to recognize that this is all like your insecurities coming out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like all the snobbery, all the boasting, like all of that. Like it's just bullshit. And like you don't hear me like saying I'm the sickest fucking bass player in the world, because like I have confidence in what I can do.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, I need to get more outside of what's comfortable for me in playing to get better. And I haven't put a lot of energy into getting better in a while.
Yeah.
It's been years, really.
Yeah.
And you know, someone might be like, "Oh, bro, you're awesome." I'm like, "Nah, I've just maybe played a little bit longer than you have. That doesn't mean I'm a sick bassist."
Exactly.
There's plenty of other bassists that are awesome too. Like the bass player from Mudvayne, he signed my guitar, and when I talked to him, he was like, told me, he's like, yeah, you know, I mean, I'm good at bass, but there's a lot of other people that are really good too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you are so humble. I just want to fucking kill you. Because I'm like, if you watch him, especially in his new band, Soften the Glare, like he's so good and he does all this crazy shit that I don't know if I'd ever even be capable of. And I just love the fact that he's so cool about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not that great. Because like for the guy that's like, I did an Iron Man, I'm amazing. It's like, yeah, I did an Iron Man, but a lot of other people did too. Like that's, to me, that's more confident. Like meaning, I see that as building people up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yes,
I did. You can too. A lot of people did. If you want to, go do it.
That's a big part. Yeah, that's a really good point though that I didn't even realize until you said that. With so much of the dialogue that I had been talking about is I'm the best, and it's actually through virtue of just saying that you're kind of putting others down, right? Like the whole idea of saying like, yeah, I did something good, but other people can too. Like that's bringing others up around you. Saying like, oh, I'm the best and no one can do this is like, well, no, that's actually bringing others down.
Like to me, like that's real confidence. I mean, even Arnold, for instance, like he recognizes that bodybuilders today are huger and more cut than he ever was.
Oh yeah.
But he's cool with that.
Yeah.
Like I think he loves it because he gets to think like, oh, I was part of the beginning of this and these guys look up to me, but somehow they look better than I do. They're bigger and more toned and stronger than I ever was, but they still look up to me, and that's so cool.
I would argue better is subjective because I think we've lost a lot with
that's true.
proportion, but still.
We could go forever and ever about aesthetics. And so I think we agree on the aesthetic thing, though. I think you're right. But it's like, I think that there's that arrogance oftentimes is putting everybody else down, acting like you're the only one that can, and that you're just great and better. Whereas I think confidence, like for instance, in jiu-jitsu, like when I was going to tournaments and stuff, I think I mentioned this before also, like everybody was so cool. Like I had some guy fucking kick my ass. And he did this weird like sweep move where like, it's like when a sweep, like not like a leg sweep where you knock someone to the ground, but when someone's on top of you and you are able to like reverse the position and sort of float them over and climb on top. It's usually when they're in your guard, and you can kind of do it from half guard sometimes, but it's damn near impossible when you've been mounted. But he did this weird sweep and I'd never seen it before. And he didn't submit me, but like he got me on points because he got the points for the mount, even though I got the points for the takedown. And also he got points for the sweep too. But after we finished that match, when I got eliminated, before I went to the no-gi tournament where it's like, you know, just shorts and a rash guard and not the big uniform, I was like, dude, what was that sweep you got me in, man? I've never seen that before. He's like, oh, come here, bro. And like we get on the mat, he's like, let me show you. And like he showed me what he did. Then he got in the same position I was in, and he talked me through how to do it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like he taught me.
Yeah.
And it's like with jiu-jitsu in particular, is it's when the saying, if you want to be a lion, train with lions. So like the idea that if you make the people in the community better, then they get better and they can compete with you at a higher level. And they push you to be better. So if you can get the other people around you to be better people and help build them up, it makes you better too. So it's like, you know, how there's no such thing as real altruism, that you're still getting something out of it, that it's still a benefit to that person.
Exactly.
And I think that the true confidence means that you're not afraid of somebody else being as good or better than you are. Because that just means that you know that you can get better yourself. Yeah,
rather than having that like mentality of scarcity, thinking that it's like a zero-sum game. Like if someone else gets better, that means I'm getting worse. So that means that that's such a better way of thinking about things. I like that.
Right. And I recognize that we're like, basically out of time.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I wanted to take a couple minutes to touch on one quick thing that I think is important.
Yeah, please.
So like there's a author named James Clear that wrote the book called Atomic Habits. Have you heard of it?
I have not. Atomic
So,
Habits.
Yeah, it's
I've actually got some Audible
idea.
credits right now that I need to use. So I might need to check that out.
Check it out. Yeah, it's great. It's I've only like read summaries and bits and pieces of it, so I haven't actually read the whole book. I've heard him talk on podcasts and interviews and things. But there's one thing he mentions about, this is the reason why I asked you about how much your behaviors play into your identity.
Mhm.
That in maybe the second or third chapter of his book, that he talks about how if you associate a behavior with your identity, like the internal narrative you tell yourself of who you are,
Mhm.
then it makes it much easier to continue that behavior or stop that behavior. So if
Yeah.
you think one day, what do confident people do?
Mhm.
And then you tell yourself, I am a confident person. That is who I am. That is what I will be. And you determine which behaviors don't line up with that. It's like,
Mhm.
then it makes it much easier to be confident if you associate it with your identity.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it makes it easier to stop those behaviors too, because they don't associate with that identity.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're like, this is not who I am. This does not fit the internal narrative of who I've told myself I am.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you just don't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, and there's plenty of behaviors that you can start and plenty of behaviors that you can stop if you associate what a confident person is with who you are. Like, I am confident. That is me. Then you can recognize that there are things you do or don't do, and you can create a dissonance inside yourself that you won't be able to handle, to the point where you'll have to change the behavior. It'll drive you fucking crazy.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, that's just one thought. And anybody that hasn't like read it or checked it out or heard any of his ideas, James Clear, Atomic Habits, it's a really good book. It talks about the little things that you can do to get a little bit better, one thing at a time. And we're not sponsored or affiliated with anybody. So like, I'm saying this because it's a good book and he has good ideas, not because someone paid us.
Yeah.
We don't advertise for anyone. We ain't no sellouts. I mean, not to say that we can't be sellouts. We could sell out,
we just haven't had the opportunity yet to sell out. But
yeah, but we have the confidence to believe that one day we can get to the point where we can sell out. Someone will want us to sell out to them. So you got any opening? Any closing thoughts, my man?
My main, like, I want to be a more confident person, and I want other people to be more confident too. And I think I'm trying to take to heart, I like the idea of it's just being realistic about your own abilities and who you are. And it doesn't have to be this idea of what you would call arrogance. That is not what you want to do. And I can see why some people may be turned off by confidence, because you're mislabeling something as confidence. Being confident is just knowing who you are. And that's an incredibly important thing. Just know yourself. I think that's the biggest piece of advice I could give.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I think that works. I think that's probably the best summary of how we've kind of expressed it in the best ways that we could. So I would like to end with a quote. And this one is Bruce Lee. Very simple, this one, not too artsy. Do not allow negative thoughts to enter your mind, for they are the weeds that strangle confidence.
Ooh, I like that. All right, guys, that is going to bring us to the end of another episode of the Metacast podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed the conversation, please hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe to keep up to date with what we're doing, and comment below and let us know how you feel about confidence and how you feel about arrogance. Did we get anything wrong? Correct us, please. If you're interested in further taking part of the conversation or even joining us as a guest on a future episode, please join our Discord. The link is in the description down below. Don't forget, we will be live next week with another episode, Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/TylerTV. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you all have a great week.